Hello everyone, it's Macklin with M Education. It's going to be the third video in our 4-part tutorial on short hair. And in this video we put down our shears and we pick up a pair of clippers to do our classic clipper taper haircut. Let's get started. The taper haircut is any short hair haircut where the length at the parietal ridge is longer than the length at the temples. The most common tapers typically fall between the lengths of a 0.5 or half guard or 0 guard depending on what clippers you're using, and a 4 guard. Your client will most likely tell you what length they want to see at the shortest, be it half, 1, or 2. But then the length at the parietal ridge is going to be your call and should be chosen to complement their bone structure. You're going to want a longer length if the parietal leans in, and you're going to want a shorter length if that parietal leans out. Sort of how we discussed in our first theory video. Today we're going to be working a 2 to 4 guard taper. We're going to do an extra 1 taper in the temples, and we're going to do a ball taper in the nape. So let's start cutting. So as we can see, we have the same sectioning, our 3 focal panels. We have the parietal ridge, back through the crown, all the way back to the parietal ridge. And the top we have panel 2 and panel 3. With short hair, sometimes it gets a little tricky to section. So what I do is I just wet the hair and I'll section one side, clip it up, then wet the hair again, section the other side, and then clip that up. Sometimes I don't even pre-section my panels 2 and 3. I will just section them when I go to cut them. The 3 focal panels are the same, but how we're going to work panel 1 is going to be completely new. We're actually going to subdivide panel 1 just so we can have our top length, which is our longest length, and then our shortest length, which is going to be our baseline length. And then we are going to blend in between those two. First thing we're going to do is we're going to set our parietal length. This is going to be the longest length, and this is what we are going to work up to. Remember, if they have a parietal that leans in, you want to build it out. So a 4 would be a great length for something like that. If they have a parietal that leans out a little bit, maybe a 3 or maybe even just a 2 open would be something that would work. So I'm going to be using the number 4 at the parietal, and really I'm just going to debulk the entire haircut to get it down to a shorter length so I can see the bone structure a little bit better and I understand what's underneath here, because right now it's a little bit long. I also keep a comb handy because as I cut up, I want to comb down to reset the shape, to reset that form so I can see what I'm cutting every time I cut. I also keep a brush tucked in right here, and that's just to remove any stray hairs that could be clouding my view. All right, let's take this parietal down to a 4. Now we've debulked the haircut. We really took a lot of length off with just that first pass. I have my longest length, my parietal length. Now I want to go in and I want to set my baseline. Now the baseline can be anything. The parietal length can be anything. So this technique will work with a half guard to a 2, a 1 to a 3, a 2 to a 4. It doesn't really matter. Your baseline and your parietal length can be whatever you choose. and then how you blend them together will always be the same. So now I have my 2 guard on. This is going to be my baseline length, and I'm going to follow the diagram that we discussed in the theory video. So about the point of the temples down to the occipital. Now I have my parietal length, my longest length set. I have my baseline length, my shortest length set, and now I'm going to blend between these. If we remember back in the theory video, we talked about how we blend. So if we return to that slide, we can see that everything from 1 to 4, we blend from the top down. Everything shorter than that, we blend from the bottom up. And this goes into the idea of either maintaining length at the top or helping to chase the fade and slim out the bottom. So since I have a 2 to a 4, that means I'm going to be working from the top down pretty much the entire time until I start doing the bald taper in the nape. So I'm going to put on my 3, I'm going to do a 3 open just below the line of the 4, and I'm going to do a 3 close right below that. This is open, and that is closed. Open, closed. So here's my 3 guard, open, just below, and now I'm just going to work one side at a time since I'm going to be switching out guards, and it's just going to be faster if I just focus. I create a C shape with my clipper. So I'm basically coming up and scooping. Now, your guards are designed to do this. They have this ridge back here which allows them to move back and forth. So you're going to get longer lengths and then shorter lengths. Now, I don't want to push this 3 against the head all the way up to the 4 because then I'm just going to cut the 4 off. So I want to scoop out a little bit right before I get to the line of my 4 closed. So that's the 3 open. I'm now going to do the 3 closed. There's our 4 closed to 3 open to 3 closed. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing my 2 open, and then I'll do a 2 half open to make sure that this line that I put in here for my baseline gets blended out. So now I have my 2 guard on. I'm going to follow the same C-shaped scooping method for my 2 open and then my 2 half, and then once I get to my 2 half, the side should be done. There's my 2 open. I'll put it halfway. This is the final cut that I need to do on this side. So now my right hand side is done. I'm going to do the same thing on the left hand side, and then I'm going to do the same thing in the back. I like working my clipper in 3 areas: right, left, and then a connection through the back. Now my left hand side is done. I'm going to move on to the back, and I'm doing the same thing. Doing my 3 open just below my 4, my 3 closed just below that, 2 open, 2 half open, and then everything's blended. Great, the taper is pretty much all put in at this point. You could line up the hairline and call it a day, but I like to put on a few extra little details because really a great haircut lives in the details. So we're going to do a 1 in the temples, and then we're going to do a bald taper fade here in the nape. So now I got my 1 guard. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to taper about 2 fingers worth into the hair, going in and then flicking it out. Because remember, even though I have a 2 right here, the 1 open is still a little bit shorter than the 2 guard, so I need to do a floating clipper placement to compensate. So now I'm going to close that down, doing the same movement, but just about half as high. Great, first temple done. Let's do the other. Okay, now we're going to do our bald taper fade here in the nape, and since this is its own technique, we're going to set it up just like we set everything up. Our 2 is now our top length, and we need to set up our 0 as our bottom length. So I'm going to put a 0 baseline in, and then I'm going to work my 1 down to my baseline, and then my 0 and half guard up. For my baseline, I'm going to set it as a 0 open because I want to go from 0 to 0 open, so I can't set the entire baseline as a 0 or I'm just taking off the hair. So I'm going to set it as a 0 open, which gives me a little bit of room to go from my 0 to 0 open to then blend into my half guard. I have my baseline in. Now I'm going to work my 1 down, and I'm going to use the occipital as my long length. So I'm still always working with bone structure, whether it's the parietal ridge, whether it's the crown or the occipital. So my occipital is now my long length. That's my 2, so my 1 open is going to go just below that. Then I'm actually going to do a 1 half open and then a 1 close, and then start working my other lengths up. We have our 2 to 1 open to 1 half open to 1 closed coming down. Now I'm going to go from my 0, which is closed, then I'm going to open it up a quarter, then a half, then 3/4, and then I will be at that previous line of the 1 open that I already put in. I like to work the shorter lengths in more subdivisions because they need to be stretched out. If we remember the graph of the fade, it shows that those shorter lengths need more length to visually blend than the longer ones. You can also notice that my movements are smaller and much more controlled. I had to look at the area that I put my 0 open in, which was about a finger's width, about an inch long, and I need to subdivide that into 4 and then place each length within that. Alright, now we have our 0 in, we're going to switch over to our half guard, and we're going to start at our half guard closed, and then we're going to go to our half guard half open, and then we should be blended. We have our bald taper fade in now. The mechanics that we use to put in that bald taper fade are exactly the same as any other fade from a 0 that we will ever do. So when we cut the fade in the next video, you're going to see that we're going to do the exact same steps, only we're going to subdivide even more because we're going to go shorter than a 0. So now I'm going to use my trimmer and I'm just going to clean up around the ears and the hairline. Alright, now our taper is in. We have a 2 to a 4. We have a 1 in the temples. We have a bald taper fade in the nape. Now let's start working on the top. Now that we come to the top, we have a lot of options. As you can see, I've got it sectioned out in panel 2 and panel 3. We're going to work panel 2 next. For the vertical form, I'm thinking of working a natural part on the left hand side, and that means I will actually be working a graduation from the natural part up to this ridge where we have the apex. So we actually be working a graduation there using a flat cutting line. And then as it moves down the rest of the head, I am going to follow with a convex cutting line. Now, I say it's a graduation because the hair is going to be worn from here over to here, so it is falling in this dimension. If it's falling in this dimension and it is short here and long here, then it has to be a graduation. Now as I work through with my flat cutting line and my convex cutting line, I'm also going to be using a slight backwards over direction, which is going to give me, in the horizontal form, an A line. It will be shorter in the back and longer in the front. Now even if I cut it flat like this, it's still going to be longer in the front just because of the curvature of the head shape. Remember, bone structure plays an important part in everything we do, so if you cut something flat, it's not going to be balanced. It will be longer in the front. Let's first identify where that natural part will be. Nothing's natural on a doll head. Let's call it right here. So now that we have our somewhat natural part, we're going to be working in vertical sections. Remember, everything from here over is going to be a flat cutting line. Everything over here is going to be a convex. And that way we're going to follow the head shape down to the 4 that we had recently put in. If not, we once again create a huge point of weight. Now, sometimes if you have somebody with a head shape that really tilts in, it's something you want to do. Or if you want to really create this boxy look, that might be your goal, that's fine. What I like to do is I like to minimize the area of refinement that I need on the corner. I'm taking a comb's width right across. We have flat cutting line into our convex. Now we're going to carry this from the back to the front. Now we are going to connect panel 3, and we're going to connect it somewhat similar to how we connected last time. We're going to be working our vertical diagonal back section through both sides, but then we're also going to do a convex cutting line in the back. Now we are done with blending this area. Now we're going to do the top of panel 3, which I'm going to do in horizontal sections like this, and then right in my center line I'm going to transition into pie sections, working a slight convex layer. Then we're going to return to our natural part, and I'm going to take this in horizontal sections, just bringing it to the length of my 4, and I'm just going to point cut that off to create just a little bit of softness. In Refinement, we're going to go through and we're going to scissor over comb all our transitions to make sure that they are as seamless as possible. Here's our rough draft of the haircut. Now we're going to get it dry and we're going with a little refinement. Here is our blow dried shape. As we can see, it's a little bit longer here because we had our flat cutting line. We can definitely see how it curves down, but we definitely have a ridge through the bottom here. That's where our panel 1, 2 meet. We're going to go through, we're going to do a little bit of point cutting just to soften the top. And then I'm going to do a little bit of scissor over comb, and that'll be it. Alright, let's do a little bit of scissor over comb just at that connection where our panel 1 meets panel 2 and 3. And now we're done with our classic taper. Let's style it up, take some photos, see how it looks. Great, so that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you enjoy the cut. I hope the foray into clippers started making sense. In the next video, we're going to be cutting the iconic bald fade. We're going to be using the same sectioning. We're going to be using the same fundamentals. We're going to be using the same theory, only we're going to dive a little bit further into it. Once again, I'm Macklin with M Education. Never stop learning. And I'll see you next time.